So welcome back. This is part two. And in part two, I want to answer the question, what does God say about entering into your spiritual world? I'm about to give you a story. I'm going to read it from Isaiah 30. I love this story. And before I give it to you, I want to share with you the context of this story. So I don't know how much you know about the children of Israel, but back in the day, long story short, they had a king, and the first king was named Saul. The second king was King David. The third king was King Solomon. And after Solomon died, the kingdom of Israel was split into two. The northern kingdom was called Israel, and the southern kingdom was called Judah. And there's a town in Judah, the major town called Jerusalem. And what was happening in the context of Isaiah 30 is the Assyrian army is coming, and they took out Israel. And they started moving south, and they started taking out smaller towns before they ended up in Judah and Jerusalem. And a lot of these smaller towns have walls, and Assyrian armies coming to take them out. And the people in Jerusalem are noticing this. They're terrified. They see the Assyrian armies coming to take them out, and they don't know what to do. And I want to kind of hit a quick timeout and ask you, what would you do in that situation? You're one of the leaders of Judah, one of the leaders of the city in Jerusalem. What would you do in the entire horrific Assyrian armies coming to take you out? What would you do? How would you handle that? Well, that's the context of this story, because the people in the city of Jerusalem, they started feeling that mix of emotions we're talking about. They started feeling anxiety, anger at God that he would allow this to happen, depression, hopelessness, and fear. And here's what they did. They cut a deal with the king of Egypt. They went down to Egypt, to Pharaoh, and said, give us your horses, give us your soldiers, give us your chariots. If we pay you money, would you help us? Would you help protect us? And so Judah cuts a deal with Egypt. And I want to read for you God's response to Judah through the prophet Isaiah. And you can find this in Isaiah 30. I recommend that you read the Message version because it's a lot more understandable. Let's just get started. It's a long chunk of scripture. Doom, rebel children, God's decree. You make plans, but not mine. You make deals, but not in my spirit. You pile on sin after sin on top of another, going off to Egypt without so much of that as asking me, running off to Pharaoh for protection, expecting to hide out in Egypt. Well, some protection Pharaoh's going to be, some hide out Egypt. They look big and important, true, with officials strategically established in Zoan in the north and Hanes in the south, but there's nothing to them. Anyone stupid enough to trust them will end up looking stupid. All show, no substance, an embarrassing farce. Egypt is all show, no substance. My name for her is Toothless Dragon. So go now and write all this down. Put it in a book so that the record will be there to instruct the coming generations. That's you and I. Because of this rebel generation, a people who lie, a people unwilling to listen to anything God tells them, they tell their spiritual leaders, don't bother us with irrelevancies. They tell their preachers, don't waste our time with impracticalities. Tell us what makes us feel better. Don't bore us with obsolete religion. That stuff means nothing to us. Quit hounding us with the Holy One of Israel. Therefore, the Holy One of Israel says, because you scorn this message, preferring to live by injustice and shape your lives on lies, this perverse way of life will be like a towering, badly built wall that slowly tilts and shifts, and then one day, without warning, collapses. Smashed to bits like pieces of pottery, smashed beyond recognition or repair, useless, a pile of debris to be swept up and thrown in the trash. God the Master, the Holy One of Israel, has this solemn counsel. Your salvation requires you to turn back to me and stop your silly efforts to save yourselves. Your strength will come from settling down in complete dependence on me, the very thing you've been unwilling to do. And I want to jump down to verse 18. But God's not finished. He's waiting around to be gracious to you. He's gathering strength to show mercy to you. God takes the time to do everything right, everything. Those who wait around for him are the lucky ones. God was angry at Judah. He was really angry at Judah because they didn't put God first. When the threat of the Assyrian army came, what did they do? They thought about themselves, their strength. They were thinking, we're on our own. We've got to muscle through life on our own strength, our own resources, and we're going to cut deals. We're going to leverage our friendship, throw a little bit of money out, cut a deal with the king of Egypt. They didn't put God first. And actually, this way of living, I found really interesting in this text, that when God saw the way they responded to challenges, God actually called them out and said, that's a sin. That's kind of alarming. God was angry with them because he had sent spiritual leaders and preachers and pastors into their lives and to beg the people, enter into your spiritual world, put God in first place. And how did they respond when they heard the truth and the warnings from these prophets and these preachers? When they were confronted with truth, they said, we don't want to listen to you. We don't want to hear about this stuff. Tell us things that make us feel better, positive things, happy things, nice it up a little bit. And because they refused God's message through the pastors and preachers, God said, your life is going to end up being shattered. God tells them the way to approach life is spiritual. Stop muscling through life on your own strength. This idea that it's always up to you. This idea that you're alone and there's no one around to help you. Don't treat the spiritual world as an afterthought. No, it is the most important world. Enter into your spiritual world. You don't have to go through life on your own resources, leveraging relationships. I love what he said in this text. Settle down in complete dependence on me. God tells us, put your spiritual world first. Come to me. I want to bless you and I want to protect you. I want to process this a little bit with some questions, and I would really encourage you to, again, maybe hit pause, go back, and maybe write out the answers to these questions for you to reflect on. Number one, is this an outdated Old Testament text? Some story where we blow dust off the text and it's irrelevant. It's a great story for the sermon, but does it have any relevance to your life today? When I read that to you, did God speak to your heart? What did he say? Have you ever thought that not surrendering to God, always kind of muscling through life on your own strength and your own relationships, have you ever thought that God looks at that and says, that's a sin. It's a sinful way to live. You say you believe in God, but sometimes you act as if I'm not even alive. How do you respond to that? What does that mean to you? Does that help you? Does that encourage you? Does that discourage you? Like, where do you come out on this? How do you go through life? Do you feel like you have to muscle through life on your own? You're by yourself? Or do you find that when challenges come on a daily basis, do you find yourself turning to God and saying, God, help me. God, where are you? God, this is what's going on. This is how I feel about it. How do you walk through life? Do you feel like you're always in I got to get things done world? There's so much to do. I just got to get things done. Spiritual stuff, it's another thing. If I'm approached with a challenge, I just got to overcome it somehow. Do you feel like you stay in your checked out world? I don't want to get involved in my family. Don't want to get involved in my kids. I just want to stay at home at night. I'm checking out. I need to go vacation. I need to drink more wine. Like, I just got to check out. Don't bother me with these challenges. And let me ask you this. How do you view truth from pastors? Does the truth from your pastors, does it kind of bug you? Do you find that you walk away sometimes from pastors reading scriptures like this and you think, man, I like them, but I wish he would nice it up. I wish somehow it would be more positive. I wish it would be just happy. I wish he would tell us things we want to hear. How do you address that? Like when we read Isaiah 30, how does that hit your heart and how do you process that? Point one of yesterday was, if you want to enter into your spiritual world, let me rephrase that. We must enter into our spiritual world to experience everything that God has for us. The big point that I wanted to bring out today from Isaiah 30 is God moves when you enter into your spiritual world. And tomorrow, as I close out today, we want to talk about what it looks like to enter into your spiritual world. Like, how do I actually enter into my spiritual world? That's tomorrow. I'll see you then.